My parents body shamed me after I reached 380 pounds. My sister added, "No wonder you're still single. Who would want you like this?" What I did next made her regret it instantly. I, 32 never thought my own family would become the catalyst for the most transformative year of my life. But here we are. Let me take you back to where it all started. Thanksgiving dinner, 8 months ago, when everything fell apart. I'd driven 4 hours to my parents' house, squeezing myself behind the wheel of my sedan, feeling every pound of my 380-pound frame. The drive itself was uncomfortable, but I'd made it countless times before. What I didn't expect was walking into an ambush disguised as a holiday meal. My sister was already there with her husband and their 2 kids. She'd always been the golden child, fit, successful, married with the perfect family. I was the tech guy who worked from home, ordered takeout most nights, and hadn't been on a date in 3 years. We'd never been close, but I thought we'd at least maintained a surface-level respect for each other. I was wrong. Dinner started normally enough. Mom brought out the turkey, Dad carved it with his usual precision, and everyone settled into their seats. I filled my plate, aware of the portions, but honestly past the point of caring. Food had become my comfort, my companion, my way of dealing with the loneliness that had crept into every corner of my life. Then my sister made a comment about the amount of gravy I'd added to my mashed potatoes. It was subtle at first, wrapped in a laugh that suggested she was joking. But her eyes weren't laughing. They were judging, measuring, finding me lacking. My mother jumped in next, mentioning how she'd noticed I'd gained weight since last year. She said it with that tone parents use when they pretend concern but really just want to criticize. She suggested maybe I should consider portion control, perhaps look into one of those meal delivery services. I felt my face heating up, but I tried to brush it off. I mumbled something about being fine, about working on it, the usual deflections I'd perfected over the years. That's when my sister struck. She leaned back in her chair, wine glass in hand, and delivered the line that would change everything. She said it was no wonder I was still single, that no one would want me looking like this. She actually gestured at my body with her free hand, like I was some kind of exhibit in a museum of failures. The room went silent. Even the kids stopped talking. My brother-in-law looked uncomfortable, studying his plate with sudden intensity. My father cleared his throat, but said nothing. My mother, and this part hurt more than anything my sister had said, my mother nodded slightly, like my sister had finally voiced what everyone had been thinking. I sat there, fork halfway to my mouth, and felt something inside me crack. Not break entirely, but crack enough that light started seeping through. In that moment, I made a decision. I didn't announce it. I didn't defend myself. I simply set down my fork, excused myself from the table, and left. I drove home in a blur of anger and humiliation. But beneath it all, something else was building. Determination. Cold, hard determination. The next morning, I woke up and did something I hadn't done in years. I researched. Not fad diets or quick fixes, but real, sustainable change. I found a bariatric doctor who specialized in weight management. I scheduled an appointment. I joined a gym that had a program specifically for people starting their fitness journey at higher weights. I hired a nutritionist. I did all of this before I even had my morning coffee. But here's where my plan took a turn that probably makes me a terrible person. I didn't tell anyone. Not my parents, not my sister, not the handful of friends I still had. I went completely silent on social media. I stopped responding to family group chats. When my mother called to check on me, more out of obligation than genuine concern, I suspected, I kept conversations brief and gave nothing away about what I was doing. I wanted them to think I'd given up. I wanted them to believe their words had broken me completely. Because when I finally revealed what I'd accomplished, the impact would be devastating. The first month was hell. My body screamed at me every single day. The nutritionist had put me on a structured meal plan that eliminated all the comfort foods I'd been using as emotional crutches. The gym sessions left me sore in muscles I'd forgotten existed. But every time I wanted to quit, I heard my sister's voice in my head, saw my mother's nod of agreement, remembered the silence from my father who should have defended me. I used their cruelty as fuel. By month 2, something shifted. The pain became manageable. I started seeing small changes, my clothes fitting differently, stairs becoming easier, my energy levels increasing. My doctor was thrilled with my progress. The number on the scale was dropping steadily. I was doing everything right, following every guideline. showing up for myself in ways I never had before. Around month 3, my sister reached out. She sent a text asking if I was okay, saying she was worried because I'd gone quiet. The message reeked of guilt rather than genuine concern. I responded with a simple acknowledgement that I was fine, nothing more. Let her stew in her uncertainty. My mother called more frequently, her voice tinged with something that might have been worry. She asked if I was eating okay, if everything was all right at work, if I needed anything. I gave her the same bland reassurances. Yes, I was eating. Yes, work was fine. No, I didn't need anything. Not from her, not anymore. What they didn't know was that I was thriving. The weight was coming off at a healthy, sustainable pace. I'd lost 60 pounds by month 4. My doctor adjusted my plan, adding in more variety, more flexibility. The gym had become my sanctuary. I'd hired a personal trainer who pushed me, but understood my limitations. I was getting stronger, faster, better. But I wasn't just working on my body. I was working on myself. I started therapy to address the emotional eating, the years of using food as a substitute for genuine connection and self-worth. My therapist helped me understand that my family's treatment of me was about their own issues, not my value as a person. But understanding that didn't mean I had to forgive them. Not yet. Maybe not ever. By month 5, I'd lost 90 pounds. I was down to 290, and the transformation was visible to anyone who might see me. But no one was seeing me because I'd effectively disappeared from my family's radar. The calls had slowed. The texts had stopped. They'd moved on with their lives, probably assuming I was somewhere binge-eating my feelings, proving them right about everything they'd said. Month 6 brought me under 270 pounds. I bought all new clothes. My face had changed so much that I barely recognized myself in the mirror. Strangers were treating me differently, smiling more, holding doors, making eye contact. It was disturbing how much appearance mattered to people, but I was learning to use it to my advantage. That's when I started phase 2 of my plan. I hired a professional photographer and did a photo shoot. Nothing over the top, just well-lit, well-composed shots that showed who I'd become. I updated my entire online presence. LinkedIn, the social media accounts I'd neglected, everything. But I kept it all locked down, private, visible only to specific people when the time was right. I also started dating. Nothing serious at first, just getting back out there, remembering what it felt like to connect with someone who saw value in me. And people did see me now. I went on actual dates, had actual conversations, felt actual attraction reciprocated for the first time in years. One woman in particular caught my attention. We met at a coffee shop, cliché, I know, and ended up talking for 3 hours. She was smart, funny, successful in her own right, and genuinely interested in who I was as a person. We started seeing each other regularly. By month 7, we were officially together. The irony wasn't lost on me. My sister had mocked the idea of anyone wanting me, and here I was in the healthiest relationship I'd ever had. Month 8 rolled around, and I'd lost 150 pounds total. I was down to 230, still had some way to go to reach my goal weight, but the transformation was complete enough for what I had planned. I'd gone from wearing size 4XL shirts to large, from size 48 waist pants to 36. I'd gone from struggling to walk upstairs to running 5 Burmese chats on weekends. My parents were hosting another family gathering, my father's birthday. My sister had sent me an invitation through email, probably expecting no response like all the previous attempts at contact. Instead, I responded that I'd be there and that I'd be bringing someone. The day arrived. I dressed carefully, fitted button-down shirt that actually showed I had a shape, good jeans, nice shoes. My girlfriend looked stunning, and more importantly, she knew the whole story. She understood what this day meant. We pulled up to my parents' house right on time. I could see cars in the driveway, my sister's SUV, my uncle's truck, my aunt's sedan. Good. An audience. I took a breath, squeezed my girlfriend's hand, and walked to the front door. My mother answered. The look on her face was worth every painful workout, every turned-down dessert, every moment of doubt over the past 8 months. She didn't recognize me. Not immediately. I watched her brain try to process what she was seeing. This stranger at her door who had my voice, but couldn't possibly be her son. When recognition finally hit, her mouth actually fell open. She called for my father, her voice cracking slightly. He came to the door, and I got to watch the same delayed recognition play across his face. I introduced my girlfriend with casual confidence. My mother, still stunned, invited us in. We walked into the living room where my sister was setting up presents on the table. She glanced up, did a double take, and froze. The room went silent again, but this time it was a different kind of silence. This wasn't judgment or pity. This was shock. My sister recovered first, as she always did. She came over with her arms out for a hug, gushing about how good I looked, how amazing the transformation was, asking what I'd been doing. All warmth and enthusiasm, like she hadn't delivered the cruelest blow 8 months earlier. I stepped back, avoiding the hug. I told her I'd been working on myself. I'd decided that I deserved better health, better self-image, better treatment from the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. That last part landed like a bomb. My sister's smile faltered. My mother found something fascinating about the floor. My father cleared his throat in that way he did when uncomfortable. I continued. I explained that I'd spent 8 months transforming myself, not because of what she'd said. I made sure to look directly at my sister, but despite what she'd said. I told them I'd gone silent because I needed space from people who measured my worth by my appearance, people who thought cruelty was acceptable if it was dressed up as concern. My sister tried to backtrack. She claimed she'd been worried, that she'd only said those things because she cared about my health. The words rang hollow in the room. I asked her if she remembered what she'd said at Thanksgiving. She went pale. I repeated her exact words back to her, each syllable precise and deliberate. The room was dead silent. Even the kids had wandered outside, sensing the tension. Then I introduced my girlfriend properly, mentioned her career as a physician's assistant, her marathon running, her volunteer work. I watched my sister's face as she realized that someone did want me, that someone who was objectively successful and attractive had chosen me. My mother tried to smooth things over. She said they were proud of me, that they'd always supported me. I laughed, actually laughed, at that revision of history. I asked her about that nod at Thanksgiving, whether she remembered agreeing with my sister's assessment of my worthiness. She didn't have an answer. My father, to his credit, looked genuinely remorseful. He pulled me aside later and admitted he should have spoken up, should have defended me, should have been a better father. It was the most honest conversation we'd had in years, and while it didn't erase everything, it was a start. But my sister couldn't let it go. She cornered me in the kitchen, and her mask fully slipped. She accused me of being dramatic, of holding a grudge, of making her the villain in my story. She said she'd been trying to help, that someone needed to give me a wake-up call. I told her she was right. Someone did need to give me a wake-up call. I just didn't realize it would come in the form of her showing me exactly who she was. I thanked her, actually thanked her, for teaching me that I needed to stop seeking validation from people who were never going to give it freely. Her face went through several emotions: anger, hurt, disbelief. She asked if I was ever going to forgive her. I told her that forgiveness required an apology, and I was trying to help wasn't an apology. It was an excuse. We didn't stay long at the party. My girlfriend and I made our rounds. I wished my father a happy birthday, and we left. As we drove away, she asked me how I felt. I realized I felt lighter, and not just because of the weight loss. Update 1. It's been 3 weeks since my father's birthday party, and I need to share what's happened because it's been unexpected to say the least. My sister has called me 17 times. I know the exact number because I haven't answered any of them. She's left voicemails ranging from angry to tearful to somewhere in between. The first few demanded that I stop being childish. The middle ones tried to explain her perspective again. The most recent ones have been apologies, or at least attempts at apologies. My mother has taken a different approach. She's been sending care packages, healthy snacks, workout gear, a new water bottle. There are notes included that talk about being proud of me, about always loving me. They're nice gestures, but they feel performative. She's trying to rewrite history, to become the supportive mother retroactively. My father asked to meet for coffee. I agreed, mostly because his attempt at an apology at the party felt genuine. We met at a cafe halfway between our houses. He looked older than I remembered, tired. He apologized again, more fully this time. He admitted he'd failed me repeatedly over the years, that he'd let my mother and sister set the tone in the family, that he'd chosen comfort over standing up for what was right. He asked me what he could do to make it right. I appreciated the question, but I told him the truth. I didn't know if there was anything he could do. Some damage doesn't get undone with a few conversations over coffee. But I agreed to stay in contact, to try to build something new rather than trying to repair what was broken. The real shock came from my sister. She showed up at my apartment last week. I don't know how she got my address since I'd moved 6 months ago, but there she was, standing in my doorway looking disheveled and upset. She asked if we could talk, really talk. Against my better judgment, I let her in. She sat on my couch and proceeded to break down. The whole story came tumbling out. Her marriage was falling apart. Her husband had been cheating for over a year. She'd been projecting her own misery onto everyone around her, including me. She'd been cruel at Thanksgiving because she was drowning and needed someone else to feel worse than she did. None of this excused what she'd said. I told her that. But for the first time, I saw her as something other than the golden child, the perfect sister. I saw her as a flawed, hurting person who'd made terrible choices. She asked for forgiveness. Not the casual kind, but genuine, real forgiveness. She acknowledged that she'd been unspeakably cruel, that she'd damaged our relationship possibly beyond repair, that she'd let her own issues turn her into someone she didn't recognize. I told her I'd think about it. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just said I needed time to process everything. She nodded and left. My girlfriend thinks I should forgive her, that holding on to anger only hurts me in the end. My therapist says forgiveness is a process, not a decision, and that I need to honor my own timeline. I'm somewhere in the middle, trying to figure out what healing looks like when the wounds are this deep. What I do know is that I'm not the same person I was 8 months ago. I'm not just talking about the weight loss, though I'm down to 215 now and feeling stronger than I ever have. I'm talking about my sense of self-worth, my understanding of what I deserve, my willingness to set boundaries even with family. I've learned that revenge isn't really about making someone else feel bad. It's about reclaiming your power, about refusing to let other people's limitations define your possibilities. My sister's words could have destroyed me. Instead, they pushed me to become the best version of myself. That's the real revenge. Not her regret, but my transformation. Not her apology, but my happiness. Not her recognition of what she lost, but my realization of what I gained. I'm still figuring out what relationship, if any, I want with my family going forward. But I'm doing it from a place of strength rather than desperation. I'm doing it because I choose to, not because I need their approval. And that makes all the difference. If you like this story, please like this video and subscribe us for more such real-life-based stories. Thanks in advance.